Now, a man who is fed up with educators, these woke educators especially, trying to be the only people that educate our kids, is speaking up like me. And I really like this guy. All right? He's a former Marine. Actually, I shouldn't say that as an Air Force guy. The Marines get mad at me. He's a Marine. He's a Christian. He's a father. And now he's an Ohio Senate candidate. Talking about JD Vance. He tweeted this out earlier this week. Parents should absolutely be the primary stakeholders in their kids' education, and anyone who disagrees should stay the hell away from our kids. Yes, bring JD on. God bless this guy. Exactly how I think. JD Vance, welcome to the program for the first time. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. You know, I'm a Buckeye. I grew up in Archibald, about 2 hours straight north of where you grew up down there in, what was it, Middletown by Cincinnati, I think I read. Yep. Thank you for your service, by the way, brother. You and I have a lot of similarities. My grandma and grandpa are mama and papa on my dad's side as well. So I grew up kind of like you. Went in the military after, kind of self-made man. And now I'm sitting here watching our country be torn apart. Whether it's the education that they're spewing onto our kids, from the woke CRT training to this over sexually driven nonsense, the border crisis, Afghanistan. And so you're standing up and you're speaking out. JD, thank you. Tell us why you got involved in this race, first and foremost.
Well, it's exactly what you said. We're going through so many crises in this country, and crises that are the creation of the Biden administration on the one hand, but unfortunately, and I hate to say it, crises that are the creation of our woke corporations and our university system, our education system. We're being fought as traditional conservatives by nearly every institution in this country. And I just thought that somebody needed to stand up and say enough is enough and actually take the fight to the institutions that are trying to destroy our culture. You know, the Democrats, the thing that they recognize is that if you teach American children to hate their own country through critical race theory, if you teach American children there's no difference between men and women, which is what they're doing with the gender ideology, then what happens to those kids? Eventually, those kids become voters, and they're voters that hate the country that made them who they are. At the end of the day, that's how you destroy society. That's how you entrench permanent democratic control of our entire society, is if you teach children they don't grow up in a great country. If you teach children that it's wrong to be patriotic, you give Democrats long-term permanent power, which is really what the game is here.
Yeah, JD, what would you say to those folks? Because I hear it all the time. Unfortunately, I live in California now, even though beautiful state, and there are some beautiful, amazing people here. And then there's a lot of crazy, wacko liberals. What do you say to those folks that are weak-kneed conservatives, that are independents or moderates, and yes, I'll even say it, some of the old-school Kennedy Democrats who you can still have a conversation with when they go, oh, come on, JD, come on, Dan, it's not that bad, it's not that crazy, we're not going to become a Germany, a Russia, that's not going to happen here, this is America. What do you say to them?
I say just look at what's happening in our schools, and whatever the intentions are of the people who are forcing this down the throats of our kids, I think their intentions are negative. But even if you assume they aren't, I talk to people all the time. I talked to a guy recently. He pulled his 11-year-old daughter out of school. Why? Because she was coming home for a week sobbing, an 11-year-old girl, because she was learning at her school, a conservative district in southwestern Ohio, that if you're white, you're bad because you're an oppressor. If you're non-white, you're good because you're a victim. Of course, it's not good to be a victim, but that's the ideology that critical race theory forces down our throats. This is happening in our schools, even in communities that are reasonable people. And if we don't start pushing back against this stuff, we're going to wake up and find ourselves completely ripped apart as a society with a next generation that doesn't see this country as a beautiful thing to build upon and to keep making better, but as an evil thing that needs to be destroyed. And it's also, coming from our biggest corporations too. I mean, big technology making it impossible for normal people to speak their mind, all the way from the sitting president of the United States, censored after January 6th, to normal middle-class Americans who are critical of the policies of our government, from COVID to everything else. We are living in a society where the ruling class is making it impossible for conservatives to speak their mind. We've got to have the courage of our convictions to push back against this stuff.
Yeah, Jamie, my final question to you is, for those Ohio voters and for just anybody watching this program around the nation, your message, especially to parents out there, about trying to preserve the American heritage, this patriotic movement that all of us conservatives want, and just a political free and independent curriculum and education for our kids. Your advice to them.
Yeah, my advice is we can't just teach what's wrong about the left. Obviously, critical race theory is totally insane, but we've also got to have a positive program on the other side. I mean, American history is a beautiful thing. Kids take inspiration from it. Why did boys land on the beaches in Normandy 60, 70 years ago? Why do you still have patriotic Americans who are willing to go off and fight for this country today? It's because we teach a positive, honest accounting of American history. We've got to teach our kids what makes this country great in the first place. We can't just criticize the left. The left is terrible, of course, but we've also got to have the courage of our view to push a positive vision of this country so that the next generation feels inspired to fight for this country. It doesn't feel beaten down and given up.
I love you, brother. I love what you're doing. JDVance.com, folks. If you're in Ohio or anywhere, you want to donate, volunteer, look him up, help him out. If you haven't read the book, seen the movie, I have. Amazing story coming from what you came from and what you have become. I tip my hat to you, JD. God bless you for all you're doing, and best of luck on this Senate race. You take care of yourself.
Thanks for having me, man. Talk to you soon.
Yep, you take care.